Welcome back to Cult Pop. With me now is Marcus Sakey. And you folks will remember Marcus, he was a guest on Cult Pop, I'd say about a year and a half ago, for his first book, The Blade Itself. Judging by the emails I received, I know you absolutely love that book. We're having him on again for his newest novel, Good People. And let me tell you, he knocked this ball out of the park with Good People. Marcus, thank you so much for being on again.
Thanks, my pleasure to be here, Jim.
Absolutely loved Good People.
Thank you.
Just a tremendous thriller where a couple is presented with kind of a moral dilemma right from the get-go. And because of that moral dilemma, their lives cross paths with some really tough people. Tell us a little bit about the novel.
Well, the novel is about a young couple. They're in their early 30s and they're trying to have a baby. And they haven't been having any luck. They're doing fertility treatments, which are very, very expensive. Mm-hmm. And the costs, both financial and emotional, are kind of grinding them down. They're crushing their dreams, and they're even losing track of each other as a relationship. And then one evening, they hear a smoke alarm from their tenant's apartment. They go downstairs and they find him dead and almost $400,000 hidden in the kitchen. And it seems sort of like the answer to all their prayers. But I'm here to tell you, as a crime novelist, should you find $400,000 in your neighbor's apartment, do not take it.
Well, we were talking off camera and I was saying, well, I think I would keep it, but maybe make some moves that are different than some of the decisions that were made in this novel. One of the things I love about all three of your novels, which I've read, is the characters they jump right off the page, and you really kind of feel like you get to know these people. And as you mentioned, this is a young couple going through some problems with fertility. And we're there at a thing where they obviously love each other, madly in love with each other, but have become very familiar with each other's habits, and they really get to know each other. And in this novel, I'm really impressed with the fact that even a married couple may not know all the decisions that their partners are going to make, and some of the morality questions that come into play with this money and stuff. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. One of the things that I like to do with my books is try and present the reader with a situation where they wonder what they might do, where hopefully the characters in it are real enough, natural enough people that you can imagine yourself in that situation. And like you said, you'd take the money. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I'd take the money. Mm-hmm. But you got to know that money comes from somewhere and that there probably are going to be consequences. And so what I wanted to do with these people was those consequences raise the stakes each time, and then the reactions to the consequences, both together and taken separately, make things worse still. Mm-hmm. Until, in order to survive, the whole of their old lives is kind of burning down around them.
Right, and without giving away too much of the novel, I would say in that particular situation, I would have, I don't know that necessarily always I would do that, but in that situation, a loner lives in their sublet, situation where they're subletting part of their house. And I should say that this novel takes place in Chicago area once again, where you're now from and residing. And so apparently those types of houses where it's
it's a two-flat, basically, yeah.
It's kind of a commonplace thing there, so they own the entire building, and that's how they come across the stuff and know that this gentleman that they find this money, they realize he's a loner because he's living right under their roof, basically.
Yeah, they don't know very much about him. He always paid his rent on time with a cashier's check, and other than that, he kept to himself. They didn't know much about him at all. As it turns out, and I'm not giving away too much here, but he didn't come by that money in an illicit fashion. He didn't save his pennies. It was very definitely illicit money.
Right.
But one of the things also that I wanted to do is they take this money not for a jet set life or a trip to the Bahamas or to buy fur and diamonds. They really just want to have this very simple thing that everybody else seems to be able to do so easily, which is just to have a family, to raise a child.
And that was kind of pointed out early on, that there was not so much jealousy, but when the lady who finds the money ends up going to her sister's place, and she's got a child, and she's there's a little bit of not jealous, but just kind of like, wow, why can't I have a baby? And so they really had fertility treatments, adoption options, all these things are very, very, very costly. So they had another reason that maybe they're at their wits' end money-wise when this book starts off with bills and what their credit cards are up to the max, and there's all kinds of problems. So it really did give a moral dilemma that for some people at home might be judging at first thinking, what do you mean $400,000? Of course you're not going to get in that kind of trouble. But they're so passionate about wanting to have their first child. They're just absolutely almost over their heads in debt. Almost at that point, I could really see where those decisions were made, but the consequences that then come because of the decisions are just unbelievable.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I think the thing is, it's getting tougher for everybody these days, right? I mean, we've got 2 wars and gas is $9 a gallon, and it's just things that used to seem so simple don't anymore. Right. And I kind of wanted to explore that idea. I think whether or not people are parents or trying to be parents, completely immaterial to whether or not you can relate to the fact that life's just a little tougher these days, and to have something like that pop up, it would be pretty hard to say no.
Now, Marcus, on some of your press and emails that you send out to people prior to publication, I was fortunate enough to get one, and you said that you're so proud of this book. This is in your mind, your best book so far, and all the reviewers are saying the same thing. Your best novel so far, absolutely fantastic, and that's keeping in mind that The Blade itself, rave reviews, was, later we've got some news to talk about with that. At the City's Edge, fantastic reviews. Now you've knocked another one out of the park. Talk a little bit about how you are now developing as an author. This is now your 3rd novel. We had you on when it was just your first novel, and you're the young writer coming out, all happy now. Well, now this is your 3rd novel. How have things changed since I had you on the show the last time?
It's interesting. First of all, thank you very much. And it's really flattering to get that kind of review, and especially to hear from fans and readers that they're enjoying it. Writing's kind of a strange thing. You write your first book, and you sell that book, and then all of a sudden you're supposed to know how to do it again.
Right. It should be easy. Go ahead.
Right, it's easy. You've done it once.
You worked your whole life to do it, now do it again.
Yeah, and there aren't very many careers where you do something once and you are now qualified to do it a second time professionally.
Sure.
So it's a little strange. You kind of have to find your way through it. One of the things that I've learned is that the whole cliche about not knowing how to write a book, just knowing how to write the one you did, is absolutely true. When I finished The Blade itself, I didn't know how to write novels. I knew how to write The Blade itself. And so when I went into my second novel, At the City's Edge, I had to sort of rediscover that process and what that book was about to me. And it was the same with Good People. So the hope is just that with each book, it's going to seem fresh and I'm going to learn a little bit more. And it hopefully will get a little bit easier. But thus far, it's still a lot of work.
Well, I'm fortunate in hosting this show that I kind of pick and choose the people that I want on the show. And basically, the authors that I have on are people that have become my favorite authors, people that I've got to get, and the staff of the show, we all agree. And when I get a book, it's then passed on to 2 or 3 other readers. We just absolutely love your stuff. So a hearty congratulations on just a fantastic novel.
Thank you, Jim. That really means a lot.
Something I wanted to talk about is the fact you're a Chicago native now, but you're originally born and raised here in the Michigan area. So is it kind of rewarding for you to come back now on a tour and once again hitting on the fact, okay, it's not your first book he got lucky with his first, it's your 3rd novel. You are an author now.
I'm still getting used to that part, to be honest. That it's still not something I'm entirely comfortable saying, yes, I am an author. I can think of myself as a writer because I've been a professional writer for a long time, but it's still surreal and it's really wonderful. It's great to come back to the Michigan area, though, because these are places that have real personal resonance to me. I've been doing library events in the Birmingham Public Library. I came here as a kid. I remember wandering through these stacks looking for dirty books and trying to find something.
Were you successful?
Not as much as I'd like. But.
Okay, now talking a little bit about the news. Good People, let me reiterate, go out, folks. Come to a library near you, pick it up, go to a bookstore and buy it, go online and buy it. Fantastic novel. From the last time we had you on till now, you also had another novel,
yes.
At the City's Edge. That's going to be coming out in a trade or paperback edition here.
Comes out in soon. Paperback, mass market paperback in March.
March. So why don't you, and so they can still get it in hardcover. Why don't we talk a little bit about that? Just give a little synopsis so people can also get that.
At the City's Edge is my second novel, and it's the story of a discharged soldier who returns from Iraq to find a similar war in his Southside Chicago neighborhood. And I wanted to kind of explore the parallels between what was going on over in Baghdad and what's going on in our urban city centers. Right. And it's a novel that it was hard. It was a difficult novel to write because the research for it was kind of painful to do.
Because you're living right in there.
Because you're living right in it, and it was fascinating. I mean, I wrote along with gang intelligence cops, with homicide detectives. I interviewed cops really from a number of different cities and departments, and it's a pretty scary situation. Everything that's going on with the gangs. So that was very interesting.
And I really enjoyed that. It's a completely different novel from Good People, but I really enjoyed that, once again, the family connection. 2 brothers really tight, one of the brothers with a young son. The brother that comes back from the war has kind of got some bitterness, got some issues.
Yeah, he's
drinking every night.
He's sort of borderline post-traumatic stress. I really want to talk a lot about how we're treating our men and women returning, which is, the answer is not very well. So I wanted to explore that. At the same time, I don't want people to think that this is a really gloomy novel. Hopefully it's got a lot of upsides as well. Car chases and gunfights and love story and redemption and Roman history.
Well, this is going back about 6 months that I read that, but even just in, kind of refreshing during the gloom of, okay, there's problems, there's also the characters that are working to build up and working with gang, the one gentleman that had the group that working with the kids and getting the gang members off the streets and doing something productive and that kind of stuff. And we have, you're coming from a perspective of Chicago. In Michigan, we've got the same issues going on in parts of Detroit, Flint, and all over.
Everywhere in the country has it.
Has those same issues. Well, that's another great one, At the City's Edge. You can still get it in hardcover now, but you'll be able to pick it up in a nice paperback edition in the spring. Your first novel, The Blade itself, you've got some cool news with that. You've got paperback edition coming out on that already. I think I've seen that already.
Yes,
in paperback.
It is. Paperback's out.
And then you've also got some really cool news about that to tell us about.
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I have great news about that and Good People both. The movie rights to The Blade itself have been picked up by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's production company, which is really exciting. They've hired the screenwriter from Gone Baby Gone.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Love that movie.
Tremendous. Yeah, love the book and the movie.
Great book, great movie, great adaptation of a book. So he has written a script for it, which I've read and I think is fantastic. So we're hopeful that that's going to be moving along. And then recently, shortly before Good People came out, we sold the movie rights to that to Tobey Maguire's production company.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, that's something I'd actually like to touch on. What are your reservations, if any, in regards to once you've put out your baby, your work here, and then letting somebody else then interpret it?
It can be a strange experience. You want to go with people that you think understand the vision, that you share the same vision of it. And at the same time, my baby is sitting right here. So while I certainly hope that it comes out and is a fantastic movie, and I have faith that it will be, it doesn't affect the work that I did and the actual book that's out there.
Okay. Now for The Blade itself, so as far as you know, then it's full speed ahead, and within 2 years or so.
Things seem to be going very well. They're looking for directors now, and I guess it's with a number of people. So
it's in pre-production right now. Then fantastic. Well, Marcus, as always, I love having you on the show. I just absolutely enjoy your work. Like I say, you're one of my new favorite novelists. One of the guys, one of my must-read people. So I absolutely love that. But why don't you tell your fans at home the website? And we'll remind them that, as always, the website will be linked up at our website. But tell the folks at home your website and some of the things they can find there.
Sure, thank you. My website is www.marcussakey.com. And besides excerpts from all of the books, you will find contests, you'll find detailed tips for writers, you'll find interviews with some famous authors. There's a lot of really good content there. And if you join my mailing list, every time I send out an email, I give away free stuff.
Which is very cool. We've got a minute or so left. Is there anything else you want to say or touch on or promote while you're here? You need to pimp and tell people about real quick.
It's such a pleasure to be here, Jim. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Hey, we absolutely love having you on. I'm looking forward to your next novel after this one, and the next one after that, and the next one after that. You're on a heck of a run right now. You really deserve all the praise and accolades you're getting.
Thank you,
I
Jim.
Sincerely wish you continued success.
Thanks so much.
Okay. That was Marcus Sakey, and I'd like you to stay tuned for more Cult Pop.
What's it like when you hear your calling? Will you remember where you were? Will you ignore it? Or will you listen? What if it calls you to go halfway around the world? To share your skills? To serve people you've never met? To do things you never thought you could? Peace Corps. Life is calling. How far will you go?
Welcome back to Cult Pop. I'm Jim Hall. We're still in the beautiful Birmingham Public Library. Just having a great time today, just a real fun event we've been working on. Just had Marcus Sakey, and now we're with Sean Chercover. He's the author of Trigger City, your second novel. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Hey,
Pleasure to be here.
You just wrote one heck of a thriller here. Absolutely love it.
Thank you.
You're getting rave reviews. Detroit Free Press is talking up your first novel. Everybody really seems to enjoy it. And you're getting some really cool comparisons to people like Elmore Leonard and other of the hard-edged fiction writers.
It's a bit heady, all this.
Yeah, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that. And why don't we jump right in and tell us a little bit about Trigger City?
Sure. Well, Trigger City is the second Ray Dudgeon novel. Ray Dudgeon is a Chicago PI, former newspaper reporter turned PI. And the first book, Big City Bad Blood, happy to report, just won the Seamus Award for Best First Novel. So that was very exciting. And I'm just coming off of that. The second one just came out. And in Trigger City, Ray is hired by a grieving father to look into the murder-suicide of his daughter. And it just seems like, murder by deranged coworker. But when Ray looks into it, he finds that she had worked a year previously with the same man who killed her at Hawk River, which is a large defense contractor, what used to be called mercenaries, now is called a private security contractor in Iraq. And as she uncovers this, as Ray uncovers this, he meets the widow of the murderer, and she's petrified, scared for her life, trying to protect her 10-year-old daughter. And it's the kind of case you definitely want to walk away from. Congress is investigating this mercenary corporation, and the woman that died was set to be a witness. So you don't want to get involved with this sort of thing.
Right.
But he can't turn his back on this young widow and her daughter, so he gets in a great deal of trouble.
Yes, and what I really liked about the novel really just took off, and it went in a different direction than when I thought, because at first when he meets with the father, it seemed to me like, okay, it's just a dad that didn't really, a military guy, didn't really make contact with, didn't have that great connection with his daughter, and more wanted answers about her life than he did answers about her death. And so then all these other things start coming up, and he was, from some problems from the first novel, he's got some physical issues where he's going to need some medical work done and all that, so the money's offered to him, and then boom, it goes into this whole
at the end of the first novel, he endures a certain degree of mistreatment, you could call it, or torture, and he's still suffering from that. He needs shoulder surgery, he can't afford it. He's also suffering a form of post-traumatic stress disorder. He's having flashbacks, which is why it's called Trigger City. That it refers to the psychological triggers that send him into a downward spiral. But he's fighting, and he's trying to get better. And in this book, he has to go back into this world where these triggers are going to be set off. But he thinks, as you said, that he's just trying to find some closure for a grieving father. He doesn't know at first that it's going to involve so much more. Turns out that the father wants both. He wants the truth of his daughter's life because they didn't know each other that well, but he also wants the truth of her death.
And I don't think he could have ever imagined the things that start to unfold.
No, not at all.
He thought it was a simple deranged coworker.
Yeah, everybody thought, even the man's widow said so.
Okay, now Sean, this is the second, your first novel, as you mentioned, award-winning. Same character in there. Because of that, you're being compared to Lauren Estelman.
Right.
Elmore Leonard, also you're getting comparisons, but Lauren Estelman, I think, is one heck of a comparison. Man's
wow, it's very, very flattering. I mean,
fantastic
he's one of my
writer.
favorites.
Yes, and he's been on this show before. We absolutely love him. But he's got a very famous series that goes on. He's written 20 or 30 books. This is your second. Do you plan to continue to write, more?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I like Ray as a character, and he's trying to become a better man, and I'm rooting for him, and I hope to explore that over a number of books. I don't know if it'll go on indefinitely, but if people keep enjoying reading the stories, I want to keep telling them. I'm also writing a standalone thriller. My publisher wants both another Ray Dudgeon book and a standalone, and that's a lot of fun because I'll get to play writing in the third person with multiple points of view and stuff like that. And there are some great writers like Laura Lippman, who has her series with her PI, and then she also writes standalones, and I think that helps to keep the series fresh as
Sure.
well.
Well, yeah, I think you get the best of both worlds there. You can continue as an author to feel fresh by writing things unique, but then also returning to something that you absolutely love.
And Lauren Esselman, who's fantastic.
Yes,
He's got
absolutely.
his Amos Walker series,
Right.
which I love. He also goes off. He has other series. He has a series about a hitman. He
Sure.
also does standalones.
He does a
all the
lot of
time.
standalones.
Gas City,
Gas
blew
City
me
just
away.
came out.
That
Sure.
was an awesome book.
Yep, just came out of
loved it.
nowhere. And
Yeah.
so, well, judging from what you're doing so far, it looks like you might have the same type of, hopefully, let's knock on wood,
Yeah.
and hope you have the same type
Thanks
of
very
success.
much.
I'd like to touch a little bit about your background that's mentioned
Mm-hmm.
here in the novel, and that you've lived kind of in some unique places all over the country, and
have.
you're also a private investigator.
Yes, I went to Columbia College in Chicago, and when I was getting ready to graduate, I really didn't know what I would do for a living, and I knew I needed a job, and I knew I wanted to write PI fiction someday. And I had met a couple of private investigators in Chicago, and I called up the firms and said, if I got the training, would you guys have work for me? And they did. So I went through all the state-mandated training, got my Illinois blue card, and went to work as a private investigator. And I had really only intended to do it for, 6 months or a year. But you know how it is. It's your job, and you take it seriously, and life moves on, and the next thing you know, years have passed.
Sure.
So I did. I worked as a private investigator in Chicago and then in New Orleans for a while as well.
I think that's really cool because of the insight you then bring to your novels. And I've talked with other guests, such as Marcus, who's was on the show earlier, and just when he'd do ride-alongs for some of his books and stuff, you bring some authenticity when you're actually there and knowing some of that. Now, having that as your background, do you feel that you're going to use that in the future as a lot of? Is that really where you like to come from? That kind of is that such a passion for you?
I do. I use a lot of even small details or the way relationships between cops and PIs and that sort of thing work. I use a lot of that from life in the books. But I also do, like Marcus does, I do ride-alongs to keep current. I do ride-alongs with cops and tour the FBI building for this book in Chicago.
Right.
The FBI took me in, and in fact, one of my contacts in law enforcement put me in touch with some guys who had just come back from Iraq, who were security contractors over there, what used to be called mercenaries.
Right.
And because the law enforcement contact made the connection for me and opened that door, after a night of tequila shots with these guys, they decided I was okay, and they kind of opened up to me. And that kind of research, and Marcus does a lot of it too, is really one of the really cool things about this job, is you get to do that and look at parts of life that you wouldn't otherwise ever see.
Now, going out around on a tour like this, do you find it quite rewarding that you're meeting up with fans and people and friends that now that you've got, once again, as I spoke earlier with Marcus and now talking with you, okay, you had your first book, it won awards and all that, but he just wrote the first
Sure.
one. Okay, now you got the second one, you're on a roll, you're doing really well, this is getting rave reviews. You're a real author now. You're not a one-hit wonder, you're really doing it.
Well, it's funny, and it's very much like what Marcus was saying. It's a bit hard to admit that, to accept that word author. I mean, like Marcus, I wrote television documentaries, so we both worked as writers. It's easy to say I'm a writer, but to say I'm an author still feels a little bit ambitious. But yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic to go out there and meet fellow book lovers and people who I saw the first time. They read the first book, they came back because they liked it. That's just really gratifying.
Right, and I think with this one, a lot of people who read Trigger City are going to love that. As I mentioned, okay, now I've got to go find your first novel.
Right.
And a lot of people are going to be doing the same thing, and that's what's fun about finding any author that you really enjoy, and then tracking down. And now you have a history of stuff. And
I
so
love
you've got
that
a
feeling
history.
of discovery when I stumble upon a new author I haven't read before, and then I realize they've got other stuff that I can go back and read. It's great.
Now, we also want to mention, while we've got a couple minutes, I always mention people's websites and
Sure.
things that they do. Talk to the folks at home about the website and what you have available and how people can read more and learn more about your stuff.
Great, thank you. Yes, my website is Chercover.com, which is just my last name, Chercover, like Chercover.com. And on the website, there are contests, there's video, photos. People send me photos of themselves reading Trigger City at work, and I post them up. That's part of a contest I've got going on. There's some articles and things. And also there's a link to a blog called The Outfit Collective, which is theoutfitcollective.blogspot.com, where both Marcus and I blog with Sarah Paretsky and Libby Hellman and Kevin Guilfoyle and some other Chicago crime fiction authors.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, and let's talk a little bit more about that. I meant to bring that up earlier. That is a really cool website and a really cool place to kind of get a feel for you and get a feel for some of the other authors you mentioned, and just all kinds of unique stuff is up there. The content there is always changing and always unique. So talk.
Well, we love doing
it,
and we like to keep it as a conversation. So, the comments are enabled. People can comment, leave comments, and we like it to become a back and forth conversation. And we talk, the main focus of the blog is we talk about crime, we talk about writing, and we talk about Chicago, or any combination thereof. But we also have the flexibility of if some issue is bugging us or we want to talk about something, we feel free to go up. And so it becomes quite a free-ranging conversation. It's a lot of fun.
It is a very cool website, and folks, I'll mention that we will also have that linked at Cult Pop, so along with Marcus and Sean's websites, that you'll be able to see that there. I think that is a really cool idea, that then you're kind of like the gang of the Midwest out there writing that.
It's a lot of fun.
Okay, Sean, absolutely fantastic having you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Trigger City was absolutely a fantastic novel. I'm wishing you continued success, and I hope that next year I have you out for your third, and the following 6-8 months later for the fourth, and so on and so on.
That'd be terrific. Thank you very much for having me, Jim. Appreciate it.
Well, you've been watching Cult Pop, and folks, I want to remind you of a couple things real quick. As always, if you just turned on to the show late and you didn't get a chance to maybe write everything down or jot things down, very simple thing to do. Visit our website, www.cult-pop.com. You can rewatch the entire episode. When you enjoyed Marcus or Sean's work, we link them. Just go right to their website. Also, while I'm thinking of it, you can also hit the RSS feed, and then you can be notified just about once a month, once every 3 weeks, we've got a new episode. You'll get a notification saying, hey, a new one's up, and you know that you're enjoying the authors we have so much, and you can always contact us also and let us know who else you might like to see on the show, or give us any feedback you might be interested in. I thank you as always for watching the show. It's you, the fans, that make it go. We appreciate all your feedback and your kind words, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Cult Pop.
As a parent, I know one of the most important times to be with your children is when they aren't feeling well. That's when the love and comfort of a family is essential to a child's well-being. For many families, there's a place they can go to find the support they need.
Ronald McDonald House Charities programs provide that supportive environment so families can be together while their children are dealing with serious illnesses and undergoing treatment. It's a home away from home for families in need, giving them more time for hugs, kisses, and quiet moments together.
You can volunteer your time at a local Ronald McDonald House and help a family in need by cooking a meal or hosting a movie night. You can also drop your extra change in an RMHC canister.
These contributions, both large and small, help more than 10,000 families every day. Proof that a little help goes a long way. Today is a great day for all of us to show our support and help give families in need more time together.
To find out how you can get involved in your community, visit rmhc.org.